Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to Under Review
It is
episode.
not the 143. It is also
Neither one of us did.
episode 49.
49. Yep, 49.
That was a
Welcome
guess.
in to our virtual studio here. I am in Lindale. Nick is in Argyle. Please don't try to look us up. We're trying to spend so much needed time with our families
Absolutely.
for the holidays. We'll get back to the autograph signing and the flashing for the fans soon.
Maybe not in the studio, but that does not mean that we will stop recording.
Exactly.
Not.
Never.
We must record and upload an episode every week because that's what we do.
The show must go on because we know y'all need content and we like giving that to you. So let's go ahead and go with the stat of the week brought to you by Andrews Logistics. The stat this week is Matt Ryan, quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, gave up a 33-point lead to the Minnesota Vikings, and they lost in overtime 39-36. It was 33-0 in the third quarter with 8 minutes left to go. The Colts were leading the Vikings. They blew that lead, and so now Matt Ryan has given up the biggest comeback in NFL history, as well as the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history in the NFL when he gave up the lead to the Patriots. So Matt Ryan, no matter how big the lead he has, it is never safe. That is what we have learned from this past game.
What a bum. If I was Matt Ryan, I would probably quit.
Same here.
Anyways, so piggybacking off of that, actually, our player of the week is Kirk Cousins. Okay? Second half player of the week, if you will, because he was terrible in the first half.
Was not great.
He was 34 for 54. Okay? He ended with 460 yards and 4 touchdowns, and ultimately the win at the end of the day. So they won over the Colts 39-36.
I mean, he basically put up 400 yards in the second half of passing, which is...
I was about to say, all those stats are from the second half, so...
It's pretty impressive. But that's what he did. Congrats, Kirk, Captain Kirk. And that is your stat and player of the week. So now we will jump into the game that really was a letdown of a game for Cowboys fans. I wish that we could both say that we are not used to seeing this from the Cowboys, but we are. The Cowboys blew a 14-point lead on Sunday and lost to the Jags in overtime by Dak Prescott throwing a pick six, while the Cowboys were basically in field goal range at that point and lost the game. So, Nick, why don't you take it away? Give us your thoughts.
Well, obviously, we should have won that game, and we were kind of on upset alert going in because it took a game, 95-yard game-winning drive to beat the Texans last week, and so everyone was kind of expecting the Jaguars to beat the Cowboys in Jacksonville, and then ultimately at the end, I don't really think it was Dak's fault because he hit Noah Brown right in the gut, right? So all Noah Brown has to do is catch it. It hit him in the chest and the hands. So he just hauls it in, falls forward for like 2 extra yards, and then we get the first down, and then ultimately we would win the game with a field goal. But we just have to stop with the 3 and outs. Like, that's what's probably the most frustrating thing to see as a Cowboys fan. It's just constantly punching the ball away after only running 3 plays because that's what we like to do best.
It's tough because when our run game is not working and we're not picking up yards, like when we hand it off on first down, we get -2 or 0 yards. It's very difficult after that to get a first down by throwing. Dak doesn't seem to be able to throw for more than 5 yards at a time, and that's been a concern his entire career, not just now. And so, but losing to the Jags are really good offensively, and they're kind of one of those teams that recently has been on the up and up. So it wasn't like the worst team to lose to, but it was a game we really couldn't afford to lose if we're looking for that number 1 seed in the NFC, and it looks like now we've probably lost that. But we did clinch a playoff spot.
On the number 1 seed, actually, Jalen Hurts is not going to play against the Cowboys this Saturday, so that is pretty huge. He's got that shoulder injury sustained from the Bears game, and then I also saw that it was possibly regular season ending, so he might be done for the entire regular season. I don't know about that far.
I just saw right before we started recording that he has not ruled out Sunday yet.
He
Definitely.
is not. Okay, well, everyone else has ruled him out already.
Yeah.
Anyways, this might just be something to get the hype of the game up, which it's already. I guess it was up before, but then after the
Yeah.
Cowboys lost, it kind of lost a little bit of its flair.
So we're gonna
So
need the
who knows?
Eagles to lose 3 more games, counting ours, if we want to be the number one seed. It's pie in the sky kind of thing, but it could happen. Either way, what we were predicting for a while now was being the top wild card team, probably playing the
As long
Bucks.
as we sustain that, I'm okay
But we
because
are in the playoffs. We have clinched a spot with the Commanders losing to the Giants on Monday night. I'm not sure how all that works out, but we are in the playoffs, and that's what matters. So
it's
that was the
looking like
goal.
the Lions could possibly make the playoffs if they keep winning.
Let me throw a stat out there since we're on the Lions. They started the season
Absolutely.
1-6,
hmm
and they have gone 6-1, and they are now 7-7. So
I mean, after week 7, everyone's like, "Oh, it's the same old Lions," but then I don't know. They just turned it on. They got rid of T.J. Hawkinson, and so I think everyone kind of said that they'd given up because he had been one of their better offensive weapons. But I don't know. They just found a way to win. Like they've been using Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift really well. Jared Goff has been playing a lot better. I think Dan Campbell's been doing a great job with the team, and it's also, in my opinion, really easy to root for Dan
mhm.
Campbell. So the Lions could be playoff hopefuls.
And I actually would love to see them in there after some of the rough seasons they've had.
And it's also because the Seahawks continue to lose, right? Like those two teams kind of started the opposite. The Seahawks started really hot and then declined, and then the Lions have been really hot as of the recent.
But as of right now, the entire NFC East is still in the playoffs.
hmm
With Washington at 7, New York at 6, us at 4. No, us at
Five,
5, and then
five,
yeah,
yeah.
obviously the Eagles are at 1, and the Cowboys and Eagles have both clinched playoff berths, and the rest of the NFC wild cards are kind of up for grabs right now, and the NFC South is up for grabs as well. So there's one game separating pretty much everyone from the Buccaneers right now. So if the Buccaneers lose and the Panthers win, then they jump to number one. So there's a lot of pressure right now with especially with Tampa Bay dropping their huge lead to Cincinnati on Sunday.
hmm
We're
I think
definitely starting to see a decline in Brady's play.
Joe Burrow had what 4 touchdowns in the second half. I think
Hmm.
like they turned it on and just torched the Buccaneers there at the end. And it's looking
But
like an NFC South team is going to get in with a losing record, which is going to
mhm.
be interesting to see. Because hopefully that means that the Cowboys will have the easiest first round in all of the playoffs this year. But I mean, we are the Cowboys, so you can't take that for granted. Obviously, we like
Exactly.
to mess things
Hmm.
up, and so that would be such a Cowboys move to lose to the Panthers or something.
All that matters though right now is that me and Nick said at the beginning of the season, the goal is playoffs. We're in the playoffs, even though we lost to Jacksonville. But at the same time, the Cowboys, when they're put with like the number one seed with a lot of expectations, tend to blow it. So maybe it's better that we're a wild card team. We have all these road games, and maybe we sneak
And
out
also,
of
I
that.
hope these last 2 weeks have been kind of a lesson. Like barely beating the Texans and then losing to the Jags in overtime. That should be like the kick in the pants that we need to say, hey, we can't take anything for granted. Even though we have one of the best defenses in the league and we have been scoring unreal points. I mean, we gotta, you know, focus up and take every game seriously. There's no taking advantage of anything.
I do need to come in now and probably just talk a little bit about my early preseason pick for the AFC East. The Dolphins just they played. I think that their last 3 games were against the 49ers, the Chargers, and the Bills, and they have gone over 3 in that stretch. They started off a lot like the Seahawks, really hot. Gave me a lot of hope, and then losing in Buffalo, that I mean they needed to win that game, especially to take the Bills for the division. I don't think the Bills have clinched just yet, but I think
They
they
are
might.
the number one seed in the AFC right
They
now
are.
because they're tied with the Chiefs, and then they have the head-to-head win.
Right.
Obviously, they
They,
haven't clinched yet, but
I
they're
don't think.
looking good right now.
Yeah, they are. The Dolphins, they sunk, and it was tough to see. I do think the Dolphins will be one of those teams in the
That's still a
playoffs
play.
that
Yeah, I was about to say playoffs are
I think
still an
they
option.
I think they're one of those, they're kind of scary. You probably like as a wild card team maybe would not want to face them just because of their
Hmm.
offensive potential, but in terms of winning the division, it's looking like I was wrong about that. Um, to Nick, and I got to give it to him. I just didn't want to go. I just didn't want to go on that bandwagon. I was trying to trust in Tua, and um, as of right now, that's not looking too great. But I think that the AFC itself is still mostly not been decided yet. I think the AFC North is still
It's
between
definitely a
Baltimore
lot
and
closer.
Cincy.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the East
Which it
is
was
it's probably gonna be the Bills.
what was huge for the North is that the Bengals were finally able to separate from the Ravens because
Hmm.
the Ravens lost to the Browns, and then obviously the Bengals, like we said, came back against the Bucks. So that's huge for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who started off the season pretty rocky. I mean, like it was last year, they were pretty bad, but then they just got hot at the right time, and they've been hot super recently. So maybe we're seeing a similar Bengals team that we saw last year.
And the Bengals are also one of those teams. Honestly, the whole AFC that are in right now, that are in the hunt, those are teams you don't want to face, like in the playoffs at all. There's no like in the NFC, like you want to face the Panthers if they get in. Like you hope the Panthers get in so you can face them.
Absolutely.
You want to face the Commanders. Like that's a team you'd want to play, but you don't. And in the AFC right now, I don't think there's one team that you're like, man, give me that team to play.
Yeah,
Because
there's
even the
definitely not a team
Chargers,
getting in with a losing record. Absolutely
right.
not.
Right, because even the Chargers are scary right now. The Raiders, I mean, even if somehow magically, because they're still in the hunt, they somehow got in, like you wouldn't want to play them either. So it's just big,
And the
a lot of
Chargers have
stuff in
been
the AFC.
figuring it out too. Like they're 8-6 right now. Like they started out struggling. I mean,
Hmm.
Justin Herbert was given multiple opportunities for game-winning drives at the beginning of the season, mainly against the 49ers and the Chiefs, and then he ended up blowing both of those, but they have been finding their strides recently. And they've had their offensive weapons come back, Keenan Allen, Mike
Hmm.
Williams. I mean, they've been struggling with injuries literally since day one, but a lot of their team is getting healthy again, and so I think we're seeing the true potential the Chargers could have.
It'll be a toss-up for a lot of the AFC teams right now. It is looking like the Bills will most likely get that number one spot. But the Chiefs could easily, it's just really one game apart right now. And it's really exciting to watch. And unfortunately, Nick and I are not in the same place watching all this happen, but we are on top of it and we are closely monitoring it for y'all. And then conveniently, we get back to the 143 at the very beginning
On
of
our
playoffs
anniversary.
on our 1 year anniversary.
One last thing I think we have to talk about is he has been the hype over the
Mm,
last 3 weeks,
okay.
and it's
Mm.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Well,
Okay,
he's relevant now.
he was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the last pick in the NFL draft taken by the San Francisco 49ers, and he was ultimately QB3, right? Because you had Trey Lance, Jimmy G, and then this guy Brock Purdy. No
Brock
one even know who
Purdy,
he was. He was out of Iowa State. Obviously, he came in against the Dolphins. What was that? 3 weeks ago,
3 weeks
I
ago.
believe. And I mean, he didn't necessarily ball out, but he just did enough
He
to
got the
win the
job
game
done. He got the job done.
last week against the Buccaneers. In his first start, he was able to beat Brady, and I believe he had what was it, 3 touchdowns that game. And then he
35
puts
to
on
7.
another clinic this week against the Seahawks, who have been, I mean, pretty good this year. And he's just finding ways to win. I mean, he's been getting the job done. Kyle Shanahan has been making the job super easy for him. And I mean, kudos to this guy. He was Mr. Irrelevant. Now he
Yep.
is Mr. Relevant.
Not to take anything away from him at all, but he is in a great he's been put into a great system with an amazing probably number one in the NFL. Now the Cowboys have shown some weakness. Number one defense in the NFL for sure. And the 49ers, really good run game with McCaffrey and some amazing weapons in the receiving core. Great O line. Brock Purdy has been put by Kyle Shanahan into this amazing situation, and he is making the most out of it. You got to give him a lot of credit. He's gone 3-0 against three really good defenses, and so excited to see what he does. Hopefully, the Cowboys can keep winning so they don't end up having to play San Francisco in their first game, because we all know how that
Yeah, that
goes.
would be unfortunate. I think we
But
should be safe from the 49ers. Obviously, the 49ers
mm,
at 10-4. Um,
they're the third
but
seed right now.
I think what it is Brock Purdy just understands that with all of the, I would say, weapons and firepower that he has around him, that being the defense, his receiving core, his running back, his O line, and even his tight end in
Right.
George Kittle, he just understands that he has to just get the job done. Like, he doesn't have to be the hero. He doesn't
hmm
need to play hero ball. He just needs to be himself. Take the easy passes and just ball out. And that's what he's been doing. Kyle Shanahan has made the playbook very easy for him, and Brock Purdy has figured out something that a lot of people haven't. And he is now one of the most talked about quarterbacks right now because no one knew he existed until three
I
weeks
had no
ago.
idea who he was.
I had no idea who Brock Purdy was, and then they put him in the game and he balled out. So good for
He
him.
did. Good job, Brock.
Well, here's we like to end our shows on under review. Just because we're away does not mean that it is any different than what it was before. We've brought to you a quote, and this one is from the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Okay.
Mm,
He said, "I've failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." So, failure leads to succession because failure is a learning tool, and isn't that the truth?
that is the truth, and hopefully the Cowboys will take that lesson this week as we get ready for the game against the Eagles on Christmas Eve. Speaking of, Merry Christmas from us here at Under Review to you, and we hope you enjoy your holiday. Thank you for tuning in this week. We will see you next week with
Absolutely.
another episode, because we never take a day off.